meeting of the 5th. It is our meeting of the term, and we're all very excited to see who will be returning and who won't. But, we are all very excited. It's been a good 2 years, and we thank you all for sticking with us for that time. Before we get started in the actual meeting, I want to turn it over to Councilman Chaplinsky, and we have a special presentation for our scouts.
Madam Chair, if it's okay, I'll go to the podium.
Yes,
Thank you.
please, yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just take a couple minutes today to introduce Michael O'Sullivan. He's a local Boy Scout who is a prospective Eagle Scout in town. Michael had approached me several months ago, maybe over the summertime, inquiring about an Eagle Scout project and looking to do some volunteer work in the community. He put a proposal together to come to the Public Works team, which was reviewed there and then here for upgrading a fence next to the Apollo at the garden, the open space garden called Pleasant View. I asked him to come out tonight because the journey was quite impressive. Michael was very professional in his approach. He took a very methodical way of understanding the process, how government operated. He managed stakeholders along the way, which was quite impressive the way he did it, and then worked through the entire project to really beautify a piece of property that I think is going to be there for a long time to come, that we're all going to enjoy. So I asked Michael if he would be kind enough to come out tonight so that we could hear from him about his journey, about some of the volunteers that he reached out to, namely especially the troop members who are here from Troop 32, and will tell us a little bit about that journey. So if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Michael to go through a few slides.
Welcome, Michael, and welcome Troop 32.
Thank you for having me today. So we started off with the fence looking pretty much like it is now up on the slideshow. The plan was to originally tear down the fence and install a new three-rail split rail fence going along the street, and then we're turning in about 80 feet on each side. In total, it was about 440-ish feet of fence, and we ended up moving it from the sidewalk back 5 feet so that there's enough space for when they do the snow clearing in the wintertime. We have a couple photos of the before where it was mixed between metal and wood. It varied between the different types of materials. It was leaning over in some spots. There was chunks missing in other spaces. So we ended up tearing down the fence and putting in a much better looking fence. A couple things to note. It took about 7 months worth of planning, which included coming to meetings to get approvals from the town, get feedback on how we can make the project better and how we wanted to go about going through it with it. We ended up having to do a decent amount of fundraising in order to raise the funds for the fence. In total, we raised about $3,100, my bad, in order to cover the cost of the fence and other materials that we would need. Most of the material we got donated from local businesses within Southington, try and keep it as local as possible. It took about 18 scouts, 8 leaders, and 8 family and friends to come out and complete the project. We started that Friday, the 15th of October, to start getting a head start because we knew it would be a big project. So we started out by drilling a couple of holes on one side so we could figure out what kind of problem we need to sort out for the following day and to get a head start. There was a couple additional tasks that we needed to cover. There was the removal of the old fence, and then on the side that was closest to the Apollo Middle School, from the sidewalk going down into the field, there was about 1.5 foot worth of grade difference. So we had to bring in some fill to level it out so that the fence would be even all the way across. Me and Mr. Chaplinsky went back and forth trying to figure out, do we want to keep it level? Do we want to have the fence dip down? We ended up going with keeping it level, so that way there wasn't a space between the fence and the sidewalk. So if anyone were to trip in, they wouldn't get hurt. These are a couple photos of during the process. The one on the farthest left is from the night before when we started to drill out all the holes. The one next to that on the bottom is as we're starting to put in the rails into the post. And then we have scouts setting post. We're drilling. The one in the top right is us drilling the holes that Friday night. And we have a couple scouts and a leader carrying post over to the holes so that way we can start setting those in. We have a couple thank yous we want to point out tonight. Big thank you to Mr. Paul Chaplinsky for helping me navigate through the entire project. We had exchanged lots of emails, had some site meetings on the site, and he assisted Friday and Saturday with installing the fence, which was greatly appreciated. And another thank you to Mr. LaValle for helping, for his guidance with the project, keeping us within the regulations so that we were keeping everything within the guidelines that we needed to follow, because we couldn't use concrete, so we had to keep the post under 4 feet. Otherwise, we would have to use concrete. And then a thank you to Grace's Restaurant. They helped us with the fundraising. We did a fundraising event there on September 11th. That morning, we did a breakfast. We raised a good amount of funds there between people getting breakfast, and then we had a couple jars where people would throw in a couple dollars if they felt like they wanted to donate. And then also a thank you to Superior Products Distributors and Superior Rental for the donation of the dingo, which we use for drilling the holes, and some other tools and materials that we used to put the fence together. And another thank you to the Home Depot and Lowe's here in Southington for donating some materials as well. And the Southington Rustic Fence, they helped with the pricing and delivery and ordering of all the fence materials. We were able to get it delivered to the site on Friday, so it was there for Saturday. And then a couple volunteers, Mr. Dave Carbone and John Napersky for removing the fence, so that way we didn't have to work with that. That was already out and gone, so that was one less step we had to deal with. And then the Southington Highway Department and staff and Annette Turnquist for bringing the fill in to level out the field. And then Merrick Construction for grading out the field and making it all level. And then another big thank you to Troop 32, the scouts, the leaders, and the families for coming out that Saturday and helping put together the project. These are some of the major companies that helped. We have Home Depot, Southington Rustic Fence, Grace's, Lowe's, Superior, and Superior Rental. And then we also have a couple photos of the fence afterwards of just different shots. And it goes from end to end and then in. So we took about 4 or 5, probably 6 hours to put the whole fence in, between drilling the holes, putting it all in, putting the rails in. We did have a couple issues along the way. There was one corner we hit some tree roots, and as we were drilling one of the holes, we were trying to drill at an angle due to the guide wires of the telephone pole, and we ended up blowing both of the hydraulic lines for the auger. So we had to pause, run, grab new hydraulic lines, but while we were doing that, the crew was able to hand dig out that one hole so we wouldn't be down waiting to get back up and working. We just kept working through the process, and then we have a group photo of everyone who was left at the end of the day.
Who was
Some
left?
people didn't make
Who
it.
was left?
So, any questions?
Nice job.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, Michael, you said you were an Eagle Scout, and the whole group are Eagle Scouts?
No, the whole group is Boy Scouts.
Okay.
The Eagle Scout is the highest rank you can earn in Boy Scouts.
Okay.
Pretty much this entire crew was there to help me with this project.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. For those that don't know, an Eagle Scout takes a great deal of time. He has to be responsible for the whole project. And Michael, I want to tell you, we have in the past been invited to the Eagle Scout Awards. And the last couple, well, maybe because of COVID, maybe. But we're looking forward to yours. When is that going to be?
As of right now, we don't have a planned date.
Okay.
Probably early 2022.
Okay, well, very good. Well, we hope that you include us on the invite list.
All right.
It'd be very, very nice. Did you want to say anything else, Mr. Czaplinska?
You know, these are special events. You know, having young volunteers like this in our community is so great to see, of course. But we don't just have one. We have a whole room full back here. And we know that each and every one of you are going to be doing similar things, whether it's Eagle Scouts or with your school or other social events that you are all contributing in. Please continue to do great things like you're doing now through the Scouts, and our community needs you in a bad way. So keep giving back to the community, and thank you so much for this project. You all did wonderful. And I do want to say, he said it was something like 6 or 7 hours. I think he was having fun, right? It was like 12 or 15 hours. I know I was dragging a little bit there, but so maybe we have one more item.
To say something.
Yes, excuse me, Michael, I was present in one of the meetings you had with the Open Space Committee to talk about your plans. I think, Chris, were you there too? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to comment to everybody that's watching and here that this is not just a plan to go build a fence. Mr. Czaplinski actually asked Michael if he had considered what kind of fence he's going to put in, size, length, metal, wood, concrete. And to my surprise, which I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, Michael had about 7 or 8 different options that he talked to us about. And not only did he have that, what he also did was he said, hey, I've already investigated, and if we want to go with these fancy concrete ones, it's going to take us like 8 months to get the parts. So not only did he have a dilemma to get approval and permission, but he also had to balance the logistics of the whole thing and the finances as well. And I think, so I commend Paul for really, mentoring this project. And I commend you guys for an awesome, awesome job. Really, really great. And again, we hope you guys can continue to keep doing things like that for our community. Thank you.
Mr. Palmer, I know, is very involved because he's the principal next door. So please, come on.
Well, I have to tell you, I love looking out at that fence every time I'm going to work every day. So thank you. Michael, I want to tell you, you thanked a lot of people, but, and it was a team effort. There's no doubt about that. And obviously you needed all those people listed on your slide, but it takes a great leader to organize all the efforts and to put in the amount of work prepping for the project. So, Michael, I want to thank you. Just absolutely fantastic, right from beginning in meetings and your conceptual design. I was able to stop by Friday night. I could not get there Saturday, but the progress between Friday night when I left and Saturday, you guys should give yourselves a round of applause. You did an outstanding job. So thank you all.
And every project needed a leader, Michael, and you are that person. Could you just come forward, please, Michael? I have a Distinguished Service Award for you. Mr. Czaplinski put in for you, and we all are very, very excited to award this to you. A Distinguished Service Award, the town of Southington extends its sincerest appreciation to Michael O'Sullivan. In recognition of the planning, fundraising, and the coordination of volunteers needed for the installation of a new fence for our open space farm at Pleasant View, which benefits and beautifies the town of Southington. And it's signed by me, Victoria Triano, as chairwoman of the Southington Town Council, and our town manager, Mark Schoda. And we would like to give that to you, Michael, and wish you the best. Thank you, everybody who helped in the project. And while we're all standing, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
James Morelli,
Here.
Christopher Palmieri,
Here.
Christopher Poulos,
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky,
Here.
Michael Del Santo,
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo,
Here.
William Diedzik,
Here.
Tom Lombardi,
Here.
Victoria Triano.
Here. The prayer, Jim has the prayer. Why don't you go ahead, Jim?
Heavenly Father, give us the ability this night to see past what is first apparent and into the very heart of issues that are presented. Keep us open and willing to hear the concerns of the people of this community, and give us the courage to act upon those things which are best for Southington. Amen.
Amen. Michael, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You may be seated. Scouts, I understand you probably have to get up for school tomorrow. If you would like to leave now, you can. We'd love to have you stay, but I also know the reality of life. So we'll just leave it in your leader's hands, all right? Very good. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you, Chris.
Second, Madam Chair.
I hear that second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any deletions, any additions? Hearing none, it is approved unanimously. Let's move right into councilperson's communication. And
Madam Chair, I have something.
sure,
We had the opportunity last Thursday night to attend up at Hawks Landing, and through the Southington Chamber of Commerce, there was an opportunity for the candidates for the town council to showcase, and I just want to thank the Southington Chamber of Commerce for having such a great event. I think it went really, really well. A little disappointed towards the end. There were some unruly folks in the audience, I think, that were pretty rude and disrespectful, so that kind of mired it a little. But other than that, everyone did a really, really great job, and I want to thank the Southington Chamber of Commerce and for Hawks Landing for doing that.
yeah, I've never seen so many people at a
Yeah, that's great.
a debate or meet the candidates night. So, okay, very good. Anyone else? Councilman Communication. Yes, Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize, I think there was a few of us in attendance at the Leading Ladies event this past week, where we had an opportunity to celebrate some of the women in our community who are making a wonderful difference in the town of Southington. Tom and I were lucky enough to work together. We had a table of 10 or 12 of the ladies, and we had a wonderful time getting to know them, waiting on them. Mark was serving.
The bartender.
He was the bartender, and we were making requests for alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks, and he was doing a good job, let's say.
With the police chief, I might add.
He was with the police chief, yes.
You guys pulling some tips?
We did pull some
Make sure-
tips
make
in.
sure you
The
report 'em.
jar was full, and there was a lot of great donations that went to the Leading Ladies, which I think eventually gets distributed through the Main Street Foundation.
Good stuff.
Matt.
Sure.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom?
Thank you. And also on the Leading Ladies event, a huge shout out goes to Megan Albanese from the Southington Youth Services here in town. She really did a fantastic job of organizing it and recruiting the volunteers and everything. So it's a big undertaking, but it's certainly for a good cause in town. The other thing I wanted to talk about this evening, well, actually, before I get into that, I just want to thank all council members for the last 2 years. It's a lot of work volunteering for the town, and I think we've done a very good job for the taxpayers of today and tomorrow. So thank you, and a special thanks to Chairwoman Triano for. There's been an enormous amount of issues that I don't think any of us could have imagined a couple of years ago. And through your leadership, Councilwoman, I think the council has done very well over the last 2 years. The last thing I want to talk about tonight is I know the town manager is going to be talking about it later, but I want to talk about the American Rescue Plan funds and the detailed explanation that the town manager has given us on how the funds will be used. I was planning on saying this weeks ago, and obviously we've all seen the news of what happened in another community in Southington, and it's just sad. It's terrible, unacceptable. We see other towns who are hiring consultants. They're getting input from counselors. I want this nonprofit. I want this nonprofit. All these it's just getting so complicated and unnecessary. So I want to thank the town manager for putting forth a plan that is professional, clear, and concise, and it benefits the taxpayers, all taxpayers. There's no picking winners and losers. There's none of that. So I'm very happy with the way that Southington has handled this. And I think, again, this is an example of how Southington is an example to other communities in the state. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chris?
Yes. Tom, just to jump off of what you were saying before, thinking back to this term, as Vicky said, it's the last meeting of our term. It's hard to imagine when we began, we would go through a pandemic. I mean, this has been really reflecting on the past 2 years. Much of it was during a pandemic. So it really was a different type of term. And I'm hoping that we did a good job of leading the community through that, especially in conjunction with our health department, making sure everyone was kept safe and informed throughout the whole pandemic. So, and thank you to all of you for collectively, all 9 of us, for working together over the last 2 years. I do want to, and I know obviously we have the election coming up, but one of our colleagues won't be returning after tonight. So I'd just like to give a special shout out to Councilman Poulos. Val and I were talking a little bit, and just want to share how much we enjoyed working with Councilman Poulos. I think the entire council has enjoyed working with you. Constantly detail-oriented, doing his homework, making sure to research everything, always respectful, sharing all his facts publicly with everyone, and just really making sure to try to be as inclusive as possible. And Chris, I want to thank you for that. We'll miss you on the council, and I'm sure the town is in a better place because of your service on the town council.
Thanks, Chris.
Well said, Chris. Well said. Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could just go quick follow up. I echo absolutely everything Chris Palmieri just said. A lot of the public may not realize, a lot of us up here, we zealously advocate for our constituents and our positions, okay? But behind the scenes, a lot goes on too. I consider Chris a friend of mine. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And I always loved how he wore the bow ties. I always wanted to wear a bow tie, and that way we kind of gave you a little, an homage
Tonight's the
with
night,
the
Chris.
bow ties.
Bill, after my time on the council, maybe we can organize a bipartisan committee to learn how to tie bow ties.
I don't know how to tie that.
Flip on.
I'll do it.
So it's a good first step. Okay.
When it was
And,
suggested, I
I'll
was
work
so
with you
nervous,
guys.
but thank God.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'll
Morelli
work
got
with
us
you.
once that clip.
But in all seriousness, Chris, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, and these past 4 years together, it's been a great time, and I consider you a friend for life.
Thanks, Bill. You're a good friend.
Any other councilmatic? Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So, I'd like to just follow up on Leading Ladies. It's always such a great, event. Megan is Steps at
Steps.
Southington Youth Services.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megan Albanese. All the women that head that up, that keep that going, it's just awesome. Just a great event. So, and thank you guys for being there to wait tables.
It was so much fun.
And I'd like to, just a shout out to you, Chris. It's been great to work with you. At my first term on the council, so I learned a lot from you. And I wish you and your family the very best.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, since we're on Chris Poulos, did you want to say anything else? Jim.
I got a couple comments.
Come on, Jim. Go ahead.
I just have a couple of quick thank yous. I want to thank Michael and Troop 32 for the fence again. I think it's phenomenal. It's really great what you guys did, and it's touching. I want to thank the Chamber for an unbiased platform for our debate last week. I thought they did an excellent job, and Hawks Landing. I want to thank John from Modern Formalware to help me put this tribute to Chris together in short notice. It was really a nice thing. And I want everyone to know that I sentiment everybody else's thoughts, and that I'm very humbled to be on this board. I think that you elected a group of really professional people, and we've done a really good job. It is hard work, and we hope to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Well, I'm not going to be superseded by anybody because I don't have to be. So, Chris, beside the tribute, this awesome tribute, I can't wait to take it off. But that's all right. I'm sure you understand.
Sure.
Chris, could you come over here, please? By the way, we gave you your own red bow tie, but we do have a proclamation for you.
Oh, thanks.
That is something that when a council person steps down, we want to make sure that they are recognized. And actually, our town manager also has something for you at a little later in the program.
You back your truck up, Chris.
I know. But I do want to read this on behalf of the entire council. The Town of Southington Town Council official proclamation, be it hereby known to all that the Southington Town Council recognizes and commends the service of Christopher J. Poulos. For the past 4 years, it has been our pleasure to work and serve with Councilman Christopher J. Poulos, serving the people of Southington with humility and great distinction. Chris has always presented himself with dignity, honor, and a willingness to hear others' perspectives. His legacy of service to the people of the town of Southington include being first elected to the town council in 2017 and was also appointed to serve as a historical society liaison and as a member of the self-insurance committee. In 2018, Chris also was appointed to the Property Tax Relief Committee. In 2019, Chris was elected to a second term on the Town Council and was reappointed to the Self-Insurance Committee and the Property Tax Relief Committee, as well as a new appointment to serve on the Public Works Committee. The one thing that's not in here as I'm reading, Chris, is your work with the fire department. All these years going after volunteers and understanding how important that is. And we should really recognize that also in this proclamation. Although taking a sabbatical for a short time, we anticipate Southington's future will always have a place for Christopher Poulos. Therefore, let it be resolved that I, Victoria Triano, Chairwoman of the Southington Town Council, on behalf of the entire Town Council, do hereby thank Christopher J. Poulos for his dedication and service to the town of Southington. Proclaim this 25th day of October 2021, Town of Southington, State of Connecticut. Congratulations. I want you to go back to your microphone so everybody can hear you. I know you had wanted to have a few words, so please do.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The proclamations is nice. Not necessary, but I understand it's a tradition. I just want to thank the council for the opportunity to share my gratitude and some final thoughts with you and the audience this evening, those people listening from home. First and foremost, I want to take a moment to thank the people of Southington for their trust in me as a counselor over the last 4 years. I want people to know that during my tenure, I've always advocated for what I felt is best for our community and to help those most in need. And I don't regret a single vote to that end. I also want to share my appreciation for my fellow counselors from both sides, not just on this council, but on previous councils, on the previous council. It's been an honor to get to know all of you. It's been an honor to learn from you and to collaborate with you on the important issues that impact our town and our residents. And lastly, I'm going to ask if you'll indulge me for just another moment to highlight what I consider a few of my proudest accomplishments as a counselor, in particular, the efforts that I've supported that I feel have helped our residents the most. Namely, my commitment to fiscal responsibility when evaluating annual budgets, my championing of public education, and my support for Southington students and teachers, my advocacy for the recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters, my leadership to expand tax relief programs for seniors, disabled residents, and veterans, my commitment to the road conditions and safety improvement in our town, in particularly the acquisition of the gravel parcel in the center of Plantsville, which when developed into a park will not only beautify our town, but it will make it safer for the pedestrians and residents of that area. My ardent support for the long overdue public library referendum, the bipartisan work and collaboration I've done around the preservation of open space, my contributions to helping residents that are most in need through my support of Southington Community Services and Bread for Life. And after speaking with Janet Mellon this week, I'm looking forward to redirecting my volunteer efforts and my newfound time to a more active role at that organization. And lastly, I'm very proud, despite that it may have cost me my seat on this board, of my votes in support of public safety and my efforts to address crime in our community. My only motive in my advocacy for doing what's best has been to act transparently and authentically with the utmost integrity in my role of governance. And I'll stand in open debate with anyone who feels differently. What I've come to realize is that when you aim to do what's best, while many will benefit, you'll never please everyone, not your opponents, nor your friends. And that's okay, as long as you have thick skin. Perhaps at times, I've been naive in acting as a hopeless collaborator, attempting to work across party lines for the greater good. But at least I could put my head down at night knowing that I've never compromised my integrity or my values due to the pressure from other people. And so it's with this reflection that I offer some parting advice to those elected to this council, to those sitting here tonight on this dais, and to those aspiring to a leadership role who might be elected next week. I challenge you to be brave, to have the courage to put aside pressures from special interest groups, political parties, and the self-interested, and to endeavor to do what's best for our great town. Because if you can do that, I assure you, you will be at peace with the job you have done. Thank you again. It's been an honor to serve. May God bless you all, and may God bless Southington.
Great job, Chris. Thank you. Any other council matter communications? Hearing none, we're going to be moving on to reports of special committees. Let's go to the referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission of the opt-out of Public Act 21-29, accessory dwelling unit and parking. And we have Chairman Bob Hammersley here and Mary Ellen Edwards from our town planning department. And Bob, would you just start us off, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Troiano. For the record, Bob Hammersley, 358 Hobart Street in Southington. Tough act to follow, man.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Great job, but we'll endeavor ahead. Earlier this year, the state legislature passed a law, and it was signed by the governor, Public Act 21-29. Under Public Act 21-29, it did a couple of things. Two of those things the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission acted on at its meeting last week on October 19th. One had to do with accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Under Public Act 21-29, a municipality would be required to allow for ADUs as a right in any zoning district that allows for the development of a single-family home. And municipalities would also be required to designate location or districts where accessory apartments are allowed. Our current regulations allow parent, grandparent apartments by special permit within existing family homes. And as some of you may know, because I know that some of you sat on P&Z in the past, special permit requires a public hearing, which allows the public to provide input to the commission before they act on it. And typically those are done in a very deliberative way, encouraging neighbors to talk to each other and that type of stuff, and working out any differences that might be present through compromise. The second part of Public Act 21-29 had to do with parking spaces, and under that act, zoning regulations would not be required to require more than one parking space for each studio or one bedroom dwelling unit, or more than two parking spaces for each dwelling unit with two or more bedrooms. Our current regulations vary depending on the type of structure it is, anywhere from 2.5 to 1 3/3 grandparent, parent apartment. We require 4 parking spaces. anyways, so we took this matter up. I think it's important to note the definition of what is an accessory dwelling unit under Public Act 21-29, and I'll just read it real quick. It's a separate dwelling unit that, one, is located on the same lot as a principal dwelling unit, two, has cooking facilities, and three, complies with or is exempt from building code. As a right means approved without a public hearing, variance, SPU, or special exception. So essentially what it means is that an applicant can go into the planning department in town, go to Mary Ellen's office, fill out the paperwork, pay any fees that are associated with that paperwork, and they would be approved on the spot. That's not the way it works now. And it's not the way I think that, well, it's not the way that we voted. There is provisions in 21-29 for the town to opt out of either of those two requirements, either the parking or the ADU requirements. And as I stated earlier, we held our public hearing, which we would be required to do under the Public Act as a process to opt out. We held our public hearing. We had minimal public input on that. Most of it was questions about what the Public Act was, if I remember correctly, and Mary Ellen certainly can correct me if I'm wrong, or just not remembering it that well. And then we took it up. As a commission, we were required to pass that opt-out provision by a 2/3 majority. So for us, being a 7-member commission, we needed to have 5 of us vote in favor of opting out. Likewise, under Public Act 29, both of those provisions must come to the town's legislative body, which is y'all, and you're required, in order to us to take that final step of opting out, you're required to vote by a 2/3 majority to opt out as well. Some of the reasons that were cited during our discussion, which is also required, you have to do that too, but with regards to the opting out on the parking provisions, was one, public safety, and two, a belief that local control can best regulate how many parking spaces are best for that community. To use an analogy, what's good for Southington isn't good for Roxbury, and what's good for Hartford isn't good for Waterbury necessarily. I firmly believe personally, and I think a majority of the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and hopefully a majority of the people sitting up here tonight, believe that local government is the best form of government, because a government closer to the people is the most effective government that you can have. With regards to the ADUs, the reasons that were stated is that, number one, as you all know, because you all authorized it, we recently kicked off a study of our affordable housing. The outcome of that study is unknown at the time, and therefore we should not modify our regulations in a manner that the Public Act will require or predetermine what that study may find. Once that study is released, sometime early middle next year, we'll be able to do what we need to do and make a decision relative to those findings as well. Secondly, removing, and this was a real thing for me, removing an opportunity for public input diminishes the spirit of democracy we all pride ourselves on. I am a firm believer that we should have public input, and by virtue of public input, we come to a better outcome. I have, in cases where a public hearing may not be required, and I did this down at the Northridge Golf Course, for example, recently. They had a site plan application in front of us, a subdivision site plan application, which does not require a public hearing. I actually asked for a public hearing to give the residents of that area the opportunity to voice their concerns to the Planning and Zoning Commission before we acted on it. That meeting, in fact, went until 11:59 at night, the last minute before we can get out, because we had so many people who came out. I think people appreciate that. I think that it's an important obligation that we all have as public servants, is to listen to people and to give them the opportunity to voice their concerns. Under this Public Act, that would not be required. What it was called by the proponents of that in their one-sheet flyer is an onerous special permit public hearing. And I participated in some of those deliberations with that group, and every time I heard that, I would push back and ask them to tell me what's so onerous about a public hearing, and the response that I got is similar to the sound of crickets. So, they never really took that matter up and just decided that that's what they wanted to do. The other things that we cited in our reasons for wanting to opt out on the ADU provisions is that, quite frankly and bluntly, to allow ADUs by a right would change the entire landscape of this town forever. And it would do it probably rather quickly. And I'm not, for one who's prepared to see that happen. Anyone who complains about traffic on any of our streets, whether it's Queen Street, West Street, Hobart Street, which I do, but any street, you're looking at a serious problem being compounded multifold. Additionally, historical structures. Historical structures in this town is something that we hold very, very close to our heart. And I was recently thinking back to one such structure that we considered out on West Street, on the corner of West Street and West Pine Street. There's a house out there which was built by Charles Woodruff, one of the founders of Southington. And one of our commission members pointed out that we should be very careful, and the application was to add an office onto that structure. One of our members stated, and I think rightly so, that we should be very careful about touching that structure for fear of diminishing its historical integrity. And we deliberated through a course of a couple meetings, if I remember correctly, and ultimately we came to a decision which I think satisfied everybody, and it was approved unanimously. Under the ADU clause of Public Act 21-29, that structure could simply be modified by the owner of that house coming down to town hall, filing a permit, and building anything that they wanted, so long as it met those requirements that I outlined earlier, and they would be allowed to do that without any oversight or anything that the town could do about it. And, I again, for one, was one that didn't want to see that happen, and I think that the commission cited that as one of their reasons. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or
Yes, Bill raised his hand.
sure.
Chairman Hammersley, thank you very much for that presentation. So I do have one question for you. So your board really, you're going to hear, I don't want to say you took evidence, but you heard testimony or you looked at the regulations. You guys consider the factors. Is it your opinion tonight as a chairman that there are legitimate concerns with the proposed ADU provisions?
Yes.
That was quick. Any other questions for Chairman Hammersley? Anybody? Yeah, Val, go ahead.
So you talked about the affordable housing plan.
Yep.
So the ADUs are not to be considered affordable housing, right?
That's correct.
I mean, that's just my
Yeah,
understanding.
that's correct. Actually, the Public Act, and thank you for bringing that up because it was one of the things I wanted to mention, but with all my other stuff, it got lost in the shuffle. But thank you, Councilwoman DiPaolo. That's an important aspect. Any ADU is not attributable as an affordable housing unit per the Public Act. Affordable housing unit being defined by 8-20 or 8-30G of the state statutes. So as we look to increase, coming out of the study, hopefully we have a roadmap or some guidelines on how to increase our affordable housing options in town. Any of these ADUs under that Public Act, if we do not opt out, will not qualify under as an affordable unit because they lack the other requirements of, or they potentially lack the other requirements of, he did the same thing to me at an earlier meeting, but of what that statute requires.
So I guess that's my question. So go back to what you had said about wanting to wait for the affordable housing plan to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me why would you want to wait for the affordable housing plan?
Well, so because one of the reasons why the proponents proposed this bill was to create a diversity of housing options. And again, one of the purposes in my mind, anyways, and probably of the scope of that study, is to provide us with first an inventory of our affordable housing stock in town, as well as a means to increase that affordable housing stock. Right. So to try to propose that, hey, let's just let ADUs by right, I think it kind of negligates or makes that study worthless ultimately, because if the study comes back in 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, whenever it is, and provides a different map, if you will, then we've already taken this step, and I think that it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. We can always go back if we wanted to go back, or if we have,
opt out of this.
yes,
Is there a way to go back?
yes.
Okay. How extensive is that?
I think it's as simple as just doing the opposite of what we did here. I mean, they don't lay out anything in the Public Act for opting back in, but I have to imagine that if this legislative body were to come back in 2 weeks and be a different legislative body who wanted to adopt the provisions of Public Act 29, God save us. But if they were to do that, they could reverse course.
Well, I guess my point is that if the affordable housing plan, depending on what that shows, I mean, right now we don't have a lot of affordable housing, right?
I think our number is about 5.2%, somewhere around there.
5.2?
The state statute 8-30G looks for each municipality to reach a 10% threshold.
Right. So if we have a plan, like we hired this consultant, right? And now the consultant starts to move forward. If we have, depending on what the consultant is going to recommend, does it make sense to opt out of the ADUs? Like, are we doing that prematurely?
Well, I guess I'll go back to what I said earlier. I mean, I think I'm a firm believer personally that the best government is a government that's as close to the people as possible, and that's local government, obviously. And I think that we as a town have an obligation to decide what's best for our town. I remember during a recent other issue, the question came to me about, well, Waterbury's doing this and Merion's doing this and Wallingford's doing this. And my response was, well, my responsibility isn't to the people of Waterbury or Meriden or Wallingford. My responsibility is to the 43,263 people of the town of Southington. And so I do my best to represent those people and what they want. And, I'll just elaborate on that a little bit further. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been hitting doors, and I've hit today 1,199 doors. Probably on my way home, I'll hit 1,200, but and I can tell you that almost to a person in less than one handful of people that I have spoken to in the course of the last 2 months, has anyone said to me that they would prefer that we be subject to the provisions of this Public Act. And it is something that I bring up because to me it's a very important, potentially very detrimental piece of legislation to this town and I guess to other towns, but again, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about us.
Right, and I agree with that. I agree that at the local level, I mean, that's something that we talk about all the time, that we want to be able to do what we can at the local level and not worry about, what the state is, what the state legislation is, what is good for Southington. So, and that's why I'm going back to the affordable housing plan will be for the town of Southington, right? I mean, it's going to be specific to Southington.
Yep.
So that's where I wonder if we're being too premature with these accessory dwelling units. Because let's get the affordable housing plan done, and as you said, we have potentially a new, a new council coming in. It's a lot of information. I mean, I took the weekend to really try to delve into this, and it's pretty extensive.
Well,
I don't know if I'll be here in 2 weeks as a counselor, so I just want to make sure that everything is looked at as far as moving forward with this plan.
And I don't disagree with that, Councilwoman DiPaolo. What I will say is that, and maybe it's me, but I spent a life, 20 years reading legislation, and a 28-page piece of legislation is not a big one. I've read 700-page pieces of legislation and been given 3 hours to get it done, decipher it, and present it to the legislators so that they can vote on it. And that's not an uncommon practice. And the accessory dwelling units are really not that complex here. Yeah,
I'll be with you on
yeah,
that.
it simply, it simply says, as I said earlier, it simply says that if a town does not choose to opt out, that dwelling units, ADUs, become a right to anybody who has a single
Right.
family lot. And
Right.
that means, let me just finish my thought though, that means that I could, you could, your neighbor could, your friend could just go down to town hall and decide that they want to put up a structure. My house is 1,200 square feet. We're talking about a structure of that size on any lot in this town, so long as it meets those three requirements, one of which is that it's on the piece of the site where the primary dwelling unit is, could put it up, rent it out to whatever, whoever, whenever we wanted to, and nobody, not you as my neighbor, not you as a council person, not me as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission or the neighbor, could do anything about it.
Okay, so if you were going to put up a structure, the legislation is saying, so the size of the structure, right now, our zone and regulations say that it has to be 800 square feet or 40% of the first floor of the primary structure, whichever is less.
Right.
Right? So let's say 800, because it sounds like you have a large house, right? So you can only put up
1,200 square feet isn't a large house.
well, no, I'm just saying it's going to
I
be
got 4
whichever is
kids
less,
now, so-
right?
Yeah,
So 800 square feet. So the new legislation is going only to 1,000 square feet or 30% of the net floor area of the primary structure, whichever is less. So I guess my point is this. I don't necessarily know that all residents can just go to town hall and get a permit and then they're done. I'm wondering if my questions are, would they be working with the building department? Would they be working with Mary Ellen and her department? They would be working within these guidelines so that my neighbor can't go and take like a 2-car garage, put an apartment over that 2-car garage that's going to go up 3 or 4 stories, right? I mean, it has to be there's going to be certain limitations. So I'm just trying to grasp all this. I'm not
Okay.
trying to say
The-
we should or shouldn't do it. So that's the point I'm trying to make is,
Okay. To answer your specific question about whether somebody can put an apartment above a garage.
well, right now they can't, right?
Right now they cannot, but under your scenario, under the scenario envisioned by this public act, yes, they could. And I'm not being flip about it. All they really need to do is go down and pull the permit on that. As I said earlier, there's 3 requirements for an ADU. One is that it is on a lot with a single-family house, and the primary dwelling has to be on that lot as well. It has to have cooking facilities. And 3, it has to comply with or otherwise be exempt from applicable building code, fire code, and health and safety regulations. So it still has to meet those building requirements. But the sheer idea of allowing a structure of up to 1,000 square feet on any lot in this town would dramatically change, and I'm being diplomatic with that word dramatically change the character, the landscape, the services that are placed on this town. And I'm not prepared to do that. Could we go back and change? We always can. Could we go back and opt out? Sure we could. But I'm serving a term that ends in 7 days. I didn't run for that term to serve 3 years, because we're on 4-year terms, y'all, but to serve 3 years, 358 days? Am I right? I'm not good at math, but close
we would
enough,
have to-
right?
you
Right.
would
So
have to-
so I'm there to do what I have to do in order to move this forward.
Bob, I just
While-
want to, excuse me, Bob, I just want to thank you. We've been going at
Yeah,
this
I know.
a long agenda. And,
Well, Madam
and,
Chair,
I know
there's
you're
a number of
interested-
questions that
I
I think
understand you have a
really
lot
need to
of
be
questions,
answered
but
here.
we also, he gave his presentation, he outlined what we need to know about this.
Yep,
If you
and
have
I
further
appreciate
questions,
that.
I would suggest that you ask him offline, and we're going to.
If we're going to move to a vote tonight.
We're
that's
going
not
to move
gonna
to a
help.
vote, that's correct. So if you have one more or two more questions, I'll entertain those, Val.
Well,
but
okay,
we
thank
can't
you.
go on all night.
No, I understand, Madam Chair, but there's a lot of information here, and we would have to opt out by January 1st of 2023, right?
But my hope is that the town of Southington will opt out this evening.
Right, I understand that. I get that. So how,
Planning
I
and
guess
zoning
my,
commission
I
has
guess
done
my
their part.
question is then, so you don't believe in any of the benefits to the accessory dwelling units? So the arguments are that they can increase the residents' property value. They can bring some rental income into maybe a senior. Maybe a senior lives in the house and he or she's on a fixed income, and they can rent out the apartment and bring in some rental income. Maybe the senior can switch spots can move into the smaller unit and then age in place. So there's a number of, now I understand those are the proponents of these units. But you don't believe those are any benefits to our residents in Southington?
I think at best, though, any of those benefits would be negligible and minimal. As I said, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, as Commissioner Triano, and you all have to move on to other stuff. I saw it as I thought it was my responsibility to partake in the discussions that were going on while this legislation was being contemplated and drafted. And my participation was met with silence. My participation was met with, you don't understand what we're trying to do. And I'm being verbatim. My participation was met with assigning labels to me and anyone else who disagreed with what they were trying to do. I won't repeat them, but they're not kind, nor are they true. And anyone who knows me, such as yourself, knows they're not true. And so I stand up here and I would challenge any of them, any of the people who put this together, to come in here today. And in fact, when we had our public hearing, we received a couple items of correspondence from folks from Desegregate CT and the like. And that's fine and that's great. And we all got those and we circulated them like we traditionally would, but none of them took the time to show up at our town and speak to it. And I put our commissioners on notice well before this legislation passed as to what was going on. I believe in transparency and kept them all informed in the matter of both personal conversations as well as at our meetings. And everybody knew what was going to happen. And everybody knew that at some point we were going to take the move to opt out. I was very upfront about that. It wasn't something that came to me on October 18th and I decided to do it on October 19th. We noticed our public hearing appropriately. We noticed our agenda appropriately. Everyone was forewarned that was going to be happening and
Planning and zoning.
Wait,
we did what we did.
I have no problem with that.
All right.
That's, you followed the process.
We do need to move on. Thank you, Mr. Hammersley.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, Val, for those questions. On this topic, we all received, I believe, Jackie Willametz's letter, and we're going to attach it to the minutes, Kathy, to make sure that we have that. We appreciate that, and we'll have public communication in a few minutes, and we'll hear from the public. And so we're going to move on from here. Our next item of report of special committees is the sewer department. Mr. Deep,
I was not at that last meeting, so I would ask Councilwoman DePaolo to report, please.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So at the last meeting, so the plant upgrade is 99.9% completed, which is great. It came in ahead of schedule and under budget, so that's always something that's really good to hear. The townwide sewer lining rehabilitation project is moving along really well. 80% of the old borough area has already been lined, and that's going to continue to move forward. And I think there's going to be a request soon to appropriate some more funds, to the sewer fund. And there are two items on our agenda tonight that the sewer committee did take action on. One is going to be, we're going to hear about them tonight, but one is the West Queen pump station, to have that awarded. And the second is the abandonment of the old wastewater treatment plant. So if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Val. No, I think we're all set. Let's move on to the Economic Strike Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had the pleasure of meeting with the Economic Strike Committee on October 20th, 2021. Just a couple of notes from that meeting. Beaton and Corbin is still plugging along. Unfortunately, a cesspool was found on the property. So they're digging and they're testing soils now. Unfortunately, this is going to incur more costs to the property owner, but they're plugging along. They're hoping that we'll get some test results back soon, and hopefully the news is good that there isn't too much more remediation that has to happen. The town planner was there, and she spoke about a couple of subdivisions coming from a couple of industrial subdivisions on West Queen Street and Curtis Street. And IM Bank has been approved for North Main Street. That's coming soon. And the Rite Aid on Queen Street will be demolished soon to take away and taken away and making way for a 7-Eleven store. And then Mr. Perillo reported that a tri-party agreement has been executed by the current property at Greenway Commons. So more information to follow. We should have hope to make an announcement in the first quarter of 2022 with Greenway Commons. And then lastly, we discussed the tax abatement for Mazzotti Electric on Industrial Drive for a 5,000 square foot addition. So things are plugging along. Economic development here in town. I've said this a million times. People want to be here. People want to work here. People want to live here. People want to shop here. So we need to continue to promote Southington and come up with projects such as this to bring more business industry into our town.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions? I'm very excited about Greenway Commons, but we'll have to hold
Yes.
for a little longer.
More to follow, Madam
Yep,
Chair.
excellent. Item D, self-insurance. Tom.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Self-Insurance Committee met last Wednesday, October 20th. We reviewed the 2020-2021 budget self-insurance results, and the self-insurance fund came in $3.3 million under budget during last fiscal year. We ended the year with approximately $11.9 million in the self-insurance reserve fund, which is above the threshold by all. There's a few different scenarios we run, and we are well above in all scenarios, so that's good. The fiscal year 2021-22, we had results for the first 2 months of the year, so that would be July and August, and it was approximately $164,000 under budget in the current fiscal year. The Self-Insurance Committee also voted in previous meetings, I believe, to go out to RFP for our healthcare provider. And that RFP, I believe, will be going live this week. It's going to be a 3-week window. And we should be reviewing those results at our November committee meeting. And lastly, I just wanted to thank a member of the committee. There's a member, I know there's very little public participation in our meetings, but it is a very interesting meeting. There's a lot of good information for the town employees and the taxpayers. We have an individual on the committee, Sal Dominello. He's an insurance professional, and he's been on the board for as long as I have, and he is just a tremendous asset to the town. He's not paid by the town. He's not involved in politics on the town. I don't know his party affiliation, but I just wanted to give him a shout out for the members of the council that don't know Sal. He's just a great asset to have on the board. And lastly, the committee also thanked Councilman Chris Poulos for his efforts on the committee over the last few years, for his detailed and dedication to the committee.
Excellent.
So that's all I have. If there's any questions on
Questions for
self-insurance.
self-insurance?
Just one, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So Tom, does the consultant that works with you, does he see the trend? You had talked about, kind of holding on to funds a bit to see what was going to happen after COVID or
Yeah.
getting through COVID.
Yeah, Joe Spurgeon is our outside consultant, and he he's very happy with the way our fund is running. I think he basically has said don't expect results such as this going forward. And the fact that our reserves are on the higher ends, the self-insurance committee has put forth a plan. We put it forth last year, a 4-year plan to draw it down each year. So if you remember in this current year's budget, we subtracted $1 million, which is a savings to the taxpayers. So yeah, we are working on kind of working towards a more normal trend going forward.
Thank you.
I mean, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just,
Okay.
because you had talked about that.
Yeah.
You know,
Any other special reports on this last meeting of our term? None? Okay. Let's move on. Town Manager, Mr. Shota, would you take over on the report of the Board of Finance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, let me discuss the Board of Finance minutes. Please look at Section 5. This is some good news for us. Our revenues are above budget by $570,000. It's led really by 2 departments, the Town Clerk's Office, Kathy, and the Building Department, Jeff and his people. Together, they make up the vast majority of our budget surplus so far. Obviously, we're only a couple months into the year, but that's a pretty solid number to be this much into the year. So
Excellent.
that's good news for everybody. Section 8, you're gonna hear more of, but this was the American Recovery Funds. We gave the presentation, Mrs. Turnquist and I gave that presentation to the Board of Finance. You're gonna hear it again tonight, and I'm happy to say they were beyond enthusiastic about how the town plans to use the money. In fact, they voted in favor of the first step, which is the West Creek Street Pump Station that the Councilwoman DePaulo talked about, which we'll talk about later on in the meeting. The final thing for the minutes is the appropriation. There's only a little bit of a different appropriation. I asked for and received $20,000 in overtime to be added to the building department. We all know that the building department is extremely busy. I've asked for and received 2 additional personnel that we currently have to assist in answering the phones there. So now we have 4 staff people answering the phones for the building department. As you know, this council added an extra half a position to do the reviews, and I'll be entering a contractual position, which won't come obviously to the board. It's not a town employee, to help us with all the FOIs. Because as I told you before, there's a massive number of FOIs that go into the building department because every bank, every attorney needs a full permit review on every residence before it closes or refinances now. So it's very difficult, but that's money well spent, and I hope the council certainly approves of that. Any questions on that?
Anyone? I hear none.
Okay, the next thing is going to be a presentation on our American Recovery Fund. I know that I gave it to you informally, but part of the statute requires me to give a formal presentation both to the Board of Finance. And I know it's going to be a long night for everybody, and I apologize in advance, but we gave it to the Board of Finance, and we're going to give it again tonight. So,
Glad to hear it.
Jeremy, if you can get the lights. And Mrs. Turnquist, as you know, is our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Annette.
Good evening. I am not seeing up there what I see on the screen. Is there something I have to press over here?
It was up there earlier, then Paul played with the computer, so I'm not sure what
Paul
happened.
broke it.
Playing solid.
Can you unbreak it?
I teach you plenty.
Ah,
Yeah.
Broke it again.
Let's try again. Let's try it over. Okay. You want to put it in presentation mode too?
I'd like to see it up here too.
It's going to be tough to see there.
It's all right. I got a paper copy and my glasses.
I don't think anybody's going to see it there.
No, well, I think I can zoom in.
yeah, if you zoom in with the top and start working your way down like we had
Except
it
when I
earlier.
touch it. Yeah.
On a presentation mode, you can zoom in. If you look over on the screen,
Mhm.
let's
I had it up
close
on
this.
here earlier.
it's right here. See that little
Yeah.
You can get rid of that left side, you'll be perfect.
And can I scroll? Yeah. Would I have to go over here? All right. Well, I think that's the best we're going to get. Okay. Good evening. As Mark mentioned, we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan funds. Basically, there are 6 categories I'm going to discuss, each represented by a different color on this spreadsheet. The green represents the MS4. The blue is Rec Park Pool and Pool House. Pink represents the Parks Master Plan. Yellow is the pump stations. Orange is a contribution to the water department, and purple is the ladder truck for the fire department. Some of them require a little more explanation than others. We'll start with the MS4, which is in the green. The MS4 permit is the result of an unfunded mandate from EPA, which requires municipalities to take steps to protect water quality before discharging into water bodies and wetlands. Steps that we take to protect the water quality are drainage system repairs, catch basin cleaning, detention pond cleaning, and street sweeping. We do sweep the entire town every spring, but we only have 2 sweepers. They're both quite old, upwards of 15 years. We would like to purchase a 3rd sweeper, originally proposed in the capital improvement plan with the ARP funds. While all 3 function, we can accomplish the sweeping in less time. We'll still have 2 if one is down for repair. And then when one of the older ones finally dies, we can still carry on with the 2 like we do now. We also do as many drainage repairs and clean as many catch basins and detention basins as possible each year. The drainage repairs are focused on our road paving projects and also on emergency catch basins. At this time, the MS4 does not require a particular number or percentage of catch basins or detention basins be cleaned each year. And thank goodness, because it's difficult to make a dent in this work along with all our other regular daily activities. Therefore, we'd like to concentrate on 1 quadrant per year for 4 years. We plan to hire contractors to clean and inspect all the catch basins, clean the detention basins, and assist with the drainage repairs. Some repairs will stay in-house. Once the whole town has been gone through, it'll then be easier for the Highway Parks Department to pick back up on the maintenance after these 4 years and stay ahead of the program. There's also a monitoring requirement and a reporting component of the MS4. All the drainage outfalls must be sampled during both dry and wet weather. Each year, an annual report must be compiled and posted for public review. We were behind in our completion and posting of the 2019 and 20 reports due to COVID, but with the help of our consultant, we posted both earlier this month. We do hire a consultant for the sampling and plan to continue with this, but we would also like to have the consultant compile the annual reports as well. This is something the engineering department has been doing, but it's just another task that has been added without additional personnel due to the MS4 being an unfunded mandate, as I mentioned in the beginning. Before we move on to the next category, are there any questions on MS4?
Anyone?
No? Okay. The blue is the rec park pool, or the pools, and the pool house. This was originally planned to go out for referendum. We have a pool expert involved. He initially thought that the pools could be renovated and updated and would not require a total rebuild, but this was subject to additional testing. We've done the testing, and unfortunately, this is not the case. The concrete is not thick enough, the rebar is not in the right locations, and the rebar is also too small. So unfortunately, the pools do have to be rebuilt. This means that the cost will be more than the $1,545,000 indicated on this chart in the blue, but we don't yet know how much. I've contacted 3 pool designers. I'm waiting for their quotes to come in. That's where we have to start this whole process to figure out how much we will need in funding. And this kind of ties into the next section, so I'll revisit the pools in a moment. We'll move on to the pink section, which is the Parks Master Plan. Currently, we're working through the 21-22 projects, which were approved in the capital improvement plan. In fact, you may have noticed Memorial Park was just paved in the last couple of weeks. The restoration is currently being done. That came out really great if you get a chance to go look at it. We would like to remove this Parks Master Plan from the capital improvement plan and use the ARP funds. This is where we get back to the pools. If we use so much money on the pools that there's not enough when we get to fiscal year 23-24, this year of the Parks Master Plan could be put back into the capital improvement plan as it was originally planned. I mean, hopefully some other things we have planned will come in under budget and we won't have to do that, but it remains to be seen, and that was our plan, depending on what the price does come in at for the pools. The rest of it, the next one is the pump stations. Plantsville Pump Station, that's already being constructed. That's $720,470. As Mark mentioned, the West Queen Street Pump Station, that's on tonight's agenda. That came in at $980,000. We have 3 remaining. It's Old Turnpike, Patton Brook, and Judd Brook. We plan to bid all those together in May or June of next year, and award in July or August. And our ultimate goal is to be completed by the end of fiscal year 23-24. The last 2 are pretty simple. The water department, we have a $900,000 contribution to their lead removal program. And then finally, there's a fire department ladder truck, which was originally planned in the CIP. But like the other work, we'd like to take it out of the capital improvement plan and use the ARP funds. So,
Great.
any questions?
Yeah, anyone have any questions while we're discussing this? Val, go ahead.
So Annette, do you have an idea, have they given you an idea on the rec park pool? Like, is it going to be a heck of a lot more, or we're not even sure yet?
I really don't know yet. I've asked for 3 quotes for the design of the pool. Then once we have the design of the pool, we'll have a better feeling on how to
So then
how to
that's
price
going
it.
to impact the
That
master
will,
park plan?
yes,
Okay.
yes, it may.
Yeah, the master park plan, as you know, was over the last, we're in year 4 of it right now, and we still have 3 more years to go. So that being said, we're taking that money, as you can tell from the budgets before, we're taking that money out of the undesignated fund balance each year. So we're not taking it out of the fund balance. But as she said, if we have to go with fiscal year 23-24, it would just be taken out of the, we'd go back to the old system of the CIP. The council, of course, would decide how we do it. But my recommendation would be, if we had to, we'd go back to that system. But we hope that because we did budget on the conservative side, we didn't just want to budget and then come back and say no, we can't do this. So we thought the numbers were going to fly. In fact, we're dead on with the pump station, because we budgeted 980. It came in at 890 something, but we need a contingency. So we're hoping to get some money there. So will it happen? We don't know, but the fact of the matter is that we do have a buffer if we have to go back to the undated fund balance. So we're comfortable with that part of it.
No, it looks good.
So the last thing we want to do is do a recreation pool in a way that somebody in the near future will be doing exactly what we're doing right now, looking at it saying it was not designed or
Right. Very good. Thank you, Annette. I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annette.
Okay, Madam Chair, the next thing I have, the aforementioned West Street Pump Station. As you will see, the Sewer Committee has already reviewed this, as was stated earlier. We're recommending that Kovac Construction Corporation, which has worked for us in the past, their bid came in at $892,400, but we're asking for the full authority of $980,000 for contingency. Any questions on that?
Anyone? I hear none.
The next item is everyone's favorite, snow plowing. We went out to bid with the snow plowing. This includes not only the streets and the parking lots, but the sidewalks and the school access walks. What we do, and we have done for many, many years, is we accept all of them, and we work in reverse order, obviously, the least expensive to the most expensive, depending how big the storm is. Any questions on that?
Hearing none.
The next one we have is to hopefully get some good heat in the town hall. As you know, we've been setting aside money every year for our HVAC system. We do it for HVACs and we do it for our roofs. We've been putting money away each year to do that. This year it falls upon the town hall, so we're recommending that you approve of Save More Cooling and Heating from Southington in the amount of $67,540. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Go ahead, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Can you just comment on the, there was quite a price range in the RFPs on the boiler replacement. Can you just speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, I can speak to that, and of course, Annette is here too. This happens occasionally. Some people are busier than others. Save More, we checked into them. Obviously, they did work for the town in the past. We felt comfortable that they will indeed have the ability to do the work. As we do with major projects, we'll have a third party reviewing the installation to make sure it's done correctly. And of course, we have a separate company doing maintenance for the town hall later on. So we are comfortable with this company doing that. And don't know why they came in at less, but in this particular case, it's certainly not a fly-by-night company. They've been in Southington for quite a long time.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So just to confirm, Mark, on the, so on that bid, because it is so low and it did stick out, there's no opportunity for them to add in costs that aren't part of the bid. Is there a protection clause in there that keeps, for example, something unforeseen comes up, this thing's not going to be 70,000, 80,000, 90,000 with the same vendor?
Anything is unforeseen means it's outside the contract. So
Were they like for like bids, I guess is my,
yeah, everyone bid on the same specs.
so anything unforeseen would probably happen to all of the vendors?
Unforeseen is unforeseen.
Okay.
The next one I hope you actually look at very favorably, and I think you will, is the dispatcher's contract. Let me just speak about dispatchers for a second. We all talk about police, we all talk about fire, we talk about how they're integral in our safety. What sometimes is never mentioned is how do the police and fire actually get to your house, get to your business, and that's the dispatchers. They work extremely hard for the town of Southington, for all towns, but obviously ones we care about are the dispatchers here in Southington. And in my mind, I think they were kind of not treated from a financial standpoint as well as we've treated our police and fire. So in this particular contract, they have agreed, obviously you can see in your spec sheet, they have agreed to the same raises that the police have already agreed to for a 4-year contract. And there was a little bit of a bump up that I worked with the chief as well as the president of the dispatchers union to get them into a competitive aspect of it. So there's an initial bump up, and then the raises are 2.25, 2.25, 2 and 2. With, of course, like everything else, the insurance rates are going to be going more toward the town because that's how we work with all our contracts. And I'm very happy with this contract. The union has already voted on it, and they approved the contract. I'm hoping the council does so tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? I know that, really, when you dial 911, the emergency call starts when that person picks up the phone at the PD. They really are in the chain of emergency personnel. So I'm kind of glad that we were able to come together. Any other questions about the contract? Val, I saw you looking over.
Mark, when it says here about the beneficial language that the chief asked for, including the possibility of regionalization, what does that mean?
Well, anytime that the state of Connecticut gives abilities for towns to make more money, if in the future they want to regionalize with other towns, we put the language in the contract that in the future, obviously if the opportunity comes up with one of our bordering towns, we can move on that and not have to worry about the collective bargaining language. So we put that in there. There is a great financial benefits. I know that the chief obviously hasn't talked to anyone at this point, but we felt that in the next 4-year period, we wanted the ability to do it if it popped up. So that's what that's for. It's really the only branch we have for regionalization at this point. So that language was added in there. It also gave the ability for the chief to put more subs in case we needed to.
Okay.
It worked out well.
Thank you. Go on.
The next item was also brought up on the sewer committee. They're recommending $7,500 for a sewer study for tie and bond. This is to, most of you probably didn't even know it was even there, but the old abandoned wastewater treatment plant on South Main Street. So obviously that's something that's been on the list for a long period of time, and we're looking to get the study to see how much it would cost to close that thing up. So any questions on that?
Anybody?
And Madam Chair, if
Yes.
no questions on that, I have the opportunity to represent the people of Southington as well as the council. Mr. Poulos, my good friend, come on up. Mr. Poulos and I go back to the shoreline of Connecticut since he was not even walking yet. So.
Oh, wow. You're
I've known
old,
Chris a
Mr.
long
Town
time.
Manager.
Chris, this is on behalf of the citizens of the town of Southington. It is a picture of our town hall framed, and it says Christopher J. Poulos, Town Council Member, Town of Southington. Thank you for all your service. And that's my report, Madam Chair, and to everyone's delight, there will not be executive session tonight.
Yahoo. Item number 6, the town attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 items I need to address tonight that aren't on the agenda, but first one is going to be the Whitman Road abandonment. You may recall 2 town council meetings ago, September 27th, we had a brief introduction of this and presentation. Basically, just a quick synopsis is that the town, at the request of the Sportsman's Club of Southington, is going to abandon this road, but keep the right-of-way access to our watershed property up there for fire, emergency access and whatnot. And the Sportsman's Club of Southington will take over maintaining this. So why we pushed it and tabled it for a week or 2 was because we wanted to make sure we could get a signed letter of understanding so that both parties, the town as well as the Sportsman Club, agreed on all the terms here. So what I'm
Hiking, will there be hiking up that area?
there's still access
Good.
for pedestrian access to the Blue Trail
Good.
and the open space there.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you if you would add this item for action tonight.
Thank you. May I have a,
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to add under old business item M, the abandonment of Whitman Road.
Second?
thank you. I hear Val. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Abstain, Madam Chair.
And one abstention. Thank you very much. And it carries with one abstention. Very good.
Madam Chair, the second item is on your old business, the request of the Southington Chamber of Commerce. I believe at our last meeting, we had a presentation from the chamber about renaming both a piece of the road and the parking lot off of Center Street for Matt Florian. I just want to make sure that the public, as well as for the benefit of the town council, understands the process of going through this. This is governed by Chapter 59 of our Code of Ordinances, and there's certain things that have to be gone through or processed to go through to make sure the naming is voted on correctly. So I'm going to run through this real quick if you'd give me that time.
Yes, please.
All right, so Chapter 59-1 deals with the naming of a government building or any part thereof shall require a 2/3 vote of the town council for approval. 59-2 says the chairperson of the town council shall appoint an ad hoc naming committee made up of 3 town council members. 59-3 suggestions. The ad hoc naming committee will accept suggestions in writing from any interested members of the community. Such suggestions shall be accompanied by biographical material and a list of achievements which justify special recognition on the basis of the distinguished service. 59.4 describes the criteria. Whenever a government building or part thereof is to be named for an individual, one of the following criteria shall be met. The individual shall be a prominent national or statewide figure whose name and reputation are widely known and accepted. The individual shall have been involved over a long period of time with the town of Southington in general or the government in particular, and shall have successfully exhibited demonstrably distinguished service deserving of special recognition. And C, the individual under consideration shall be deceased for a period of not less than 5 years. 59-5, there should be a final list. After completion of the deliberations, the ad hoc naming committee shall present a list of no more than 3 names to the town manager, who will forward it to the town council. 59-6, selection. The town council shall then make the final selection of 1 name from the list submitted by the committee. And 59-7 says there's a clause for a waiver of provisions. So the town council may waive any one of these provisions or more above with an affirmative vote of 7 members of the council. So just procedurally wise, there would be 2 votes being taken tonight if you wanted to pass this. The first vote would be to waive the provision, and you would need 7 members to vote affirmatively for this. And the second vote would be to affirm the naming, and you would need a 2/3 vote for that. Mm-hmm. Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, anybody have any questions? I hear none. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have for tonight.
Very good. So, so I would like to get it on the agenda so that we can see where we stand. So the first motion would be,
Oh, it's going to be.
It's already-
no,
already
go
on the-
ahead.
it's already on the-
Oh, I'm sorry.
item
It's
C.
on there. Yeah, of course it is. All right, we got it. Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. We go into now, Item 7, which is public communications. We invite you to come. We ask you to, you have 5 minutes to speak. We ask you to be respectful, and we'll be respectful back. Thank you so much, Pamela DiPaolo.
Good evening, Southington Town Council, Chairwoman Triano. Thank you for all your service, and good luck to all of you next week, and thank you again. Pamela J. DiPaolo, 54 Delahunty Drive. I'm in favor of the town of Southington opting out of the accessory housing provision that the state has put forward. The reason zoning restrictions have been put in place for many years is so that the residents of our town are protected from overdevelopment, from haphazard building structures being put up on properties without the desired and necessary public oversight, to prevent an individual homeowner from arbitrarily building an addition without allowing a public hearing, to assure that an addition will not obstruct or unduly impede a neighboring property in any way. Our zoning boards and the valuable service they have provided and do continue to provide gives all residents the peace of mind and the assurance that new structures on our built environment and our built properties will follow established common sense guidelines backed up by professional analysis of proposed changes, which is what our zoning boards have done and are continuing to do in a very dedicated way. The unforeseen consequences of the allowance of structures added to existing ones without zoning oversight could result and will result in increased noise, vehicle pollution, and increased strain on our water, sewer, police, and the demands on our fire departments. Loss of privacy, where previously there was certainly a measure of that, and a greatly diminished level of the quality of life for homeowners when they believed structures around their homes had certain boundaries, they had certain appearances, they had a way that they were made. They may suffer a loss in their property values if unexpectedly a neighbor puts up a structure that may be what they believe is in their best interest, but not that of the surrounding neighborhood. It can change the character in many negative ways. These negatives outweigh the positives. Those taxpayers and homeowners who have worked very hard to not only to earn the money to pay for their home and to build a home, but they also work hard to maintain their property and keep them clean, presentable, and groomed. And they should expect their neighborhood to retain the character for which it was intended when it was formed and built. The neighbors' houses and other structures are a given distance away. They have a certain appearance, a predictable number of persons who live there, that the size of the lots was intended for. This should not be disrupted. Southington is continuing to become a highly developed community, both commercially and residential. And if its officials allow this law that has just been enacted to govern our land use, I believe all of the hard work of all of the present and past generations of committed Southington board members and town officials looking out for the best interests of the entire community, the time and efforts made to protect the safety and well-being of our people will be reversed and greatly diminished. I would not want to see that happen. I have looked at, as a business person in Southington for a long time, I have watched as many of the elderly people in our town who are still able to stay in town are able to do that through many new developments. And again, these may not necessarily be low income, but they are a big effort on the part of our Southington builders, such as Pacer Lane. That's one of the new ones. And I have personally worked with people who have been selling their homes in Southington. They want to stay in Southington. They're going there. You have Eden on Main. That's a huge development, a huge project of all types of apartments. You have the Carter Lane development that was not too long ago. And then, of course, you have all the other condominiums which has represented high-density housing, such as Riverview and Ridgeview up off of West Street. There are a lot of very fine people from Southington, older people who are living there. Cardinal Crest and, of course, Spring Lake Village, all of the older communities. But you have the turnover that's happening there, too. And I see this on a day-to-day basis, working with people who are trying to stay in Southington. And a lot of them are able to. So I think as far as, bringing in the diversity idea, I think that can be accomplished. I think Southington is doing its best. I think the zoning board is doing a great job. And this board is doing very well also in terms of making balanced decisions about what you have the past and the present and the future. So you have all the people who have lived here like I have all my life, except for my college years, and you see all these changes happening. But I think it's something that you don't want this type of thing to happen too fast and take over and be something that is going to create a jerking motion. We have to go slowly with it and carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else wish to speak tonight?
Good evening. I'm Pete Anderson of 1177 Marion Avenue, and I'm sorry I didn't get the memo on the bow ties tonight. But I'm also here to comment on the question of whether or not to opt out of the accessory dwelling unit and parking provisions of the Connecticut Public Act 2129. I fear we are rushing to judgment without fully digesting all of the actual provisions. Choosing to opt out less than 1 month into the allowed 15-month opt-out period may signal that Southington is not the most welcoming destination. I agree with Chairman Hammersley that public input is essential. It was a bit lacking, through no fault of the commission, at last week's PZC meeting. I suspect that was because the public hearing topic was a bit obtuse, i.e., to consider opting out of the accessory dwelling unit requirements and parking limitations outlined in Public Act 2129. I realize you may choose to opt out tonight. I simply ask that you follow up by requesting the PZC to formally reconsider individually each specific item in the Act, and there are about a dozen, on its own merits and seek additional public input on them. If some regulation changes are appropriate, Southington will be better for it. Thank you. I know decisions are not easy, so I'd also like to thank you all for your service to the town.
Thank you, Pete. That was very nice. Thank you so much. Who's next? Is there someone else who wishes to speak? That's okay. We'll wait.
Good evening, everyone. Christina Volpe, 161 Oakland Road, Planning and Zoning Commissioner. So I'm here not to disagree with anything that's already been said tonight, but I'm here to kind of discuss why I voted no last week. And that's because, as the fine gentleman that just came before me so unbiasedly and eloquently said, there are things that we could take away from this, I feel. And one thing that was presented to us most recently at the Affordable Housing Study kind of kickoff meeting was that we've done a great job with elderly housing, with in-place living. We had a goal, we've reached towards it, and we're nearly there, right? We see these developments in town. What worries me is actually my age group and selfishly, the affordability in town therein, and this is issues you've all heard me talk about before, but the 25 to 40 age group that will become the live-in-place senior eventually in our town. Now, I agree, the accessory dwelling unit package was a lot, and no, it may not fit us the way that it was presented. But I do agree with the gentleman before me that there are things to take away from it, that there are things to consider, especially when it comes to what Mr. Hammersley, with what my chair said, in the sense that there isn't a one size fits all. We are Southington. But what this provision did say was that it's not any single family dwelling unit. It's within the districts or zones that we delegate it to within our town. So a lot of the multifamily housing near the former factories in town that already have the garage in the back, how could we be providing rent to maybe a senior citizen in that sense, or someone who wants to have their young daughter and their family live with them close by? I agree with public input all the time, but as it's been said here and in many other places, families don't look like what they used to. And sometimes we're not making the big bucks, but we want to stay in town, you know? So I would ask to just consider maybe some of the things in here, read those X amount of pages, however much it'll put you to sleep, and try to think about those things in that future populace of our community and the creative ways that we can use the structures that are already there. So that's really all I have tonight, but I thank you all for what you do. I know it's an extremely difficult thing, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
I
Christine.
have a question, Madam Chair.
Yeah, sure.
If I may.
Yes,
For me?
Yes.
Sure.
You had brought up.
We're not.
You had brought up.
I know we're not supposed to ask questions, but I will entertain it if a council person has a question.
I personally don't feel uncomfortable unless it's going to be, really
I'll ask
striking.
it.
I'm already sweating up here.
It's okay. I'll ask it during the next item. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Town Council. My name is Mike Riccio, and my address is 124 Andrews Street here in Southington. I'm here to profess my love for Pam DiPaolo. I love you, Pam, my first furniture set. Pam touched on all the particulars because she's always very organized and, as you can see, well prepared and written. Pam touched on everything that I was going to mention about the accessory apartment use. I want to point out that Southington is so wildly successful because people moved here from the cities. And the big question is why? Because the cities acted upon the flavor of the day, the flavor of the year politically, whether it was local politics, state politics, or national politics. And politics in general ruined the cities. And I will tell you, and this may be unpopular on some of the social sites, what I'm about to say, but the events of the last year and a half politically and on our national spectrum will be history in the not too distant future. I am honored to be part of this town of Southington in a government fashion and volunteer and everything, and to say that Southington and where we've come from is not going to be history. We've created a community that has all forms of living. We have apartments on Wolf Hill that in 2-family houses where many of us, myself included, started out because that's all we could afford. We could not leave the houses that we grew up in. Many of us grew up in very beautiful homes and start out in a beautiful home. We had to work our way there. Southington is built on that. We could not circumvent zoning, restrictive covenants that were put in place when all these people bought their homes many years ago. We can't circumvent all that for the flavor of the day, for the politics of today, to make certain people feel good. It's wrong. The state of Connecticut, the leadership, this is my personal opinion, has failed us miserably on numerous fronts. I'm not about to sit here as a member of this community and watch their miserable failures come into our town and destroy what we've created. We have housing in Southington for everybody. Everybody. You have to work for it. Get up every day. If you can, go to work. If you can't, we have a great community that offers people who can't. And I know this council, all 9 of you, support those programs as well. Don't destroy this community because people want to feel good about themselves politically and get elected again. That's disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Angelica's coming up.
Is there an age requirement for the?
She gets 10 minutes.
Stuff, so I'm just gonna have her face this way.
Mhm.
This is Leah, everybody. Hi. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks.
I'm brand new to Southington. I just moved here this year. My name is Angelica Spada. I reside at 550 Darling Street, and I just want to say that as a new member of this community, I'm happy here, and I just want to echo what I believe Miss Pam DiPaolo, what she said. I wouldn't want to ruin what this town is like at all. It's beautiful, so we should keep it that way. And I'm in favor of respecting individuals' rights, especially with their property, If they worked hard to, maintain and build what they have, we shouldn't try to encroach on that, So basically, my speech here today is about politics, unfortunately. The mandates specifically, you know, that the nation is still seeing and the state is seeing, and then the town sees as well. My concern is that these mandates are being misconstrued as laws when they are not, because they're not found in the Connecticut General Statutes, or in the United States codes. So therefore, it's not a law. But if it ever truly became law in the United States, it would be disheartening that our children would have to read in their history books, you know, about these years that we're seeing today. And I just wonder, like, what laws are allowing all these things to actually occur, like on the higher levels? And what are we going to do about it? So I imagine the day, like I said, when our children read this in their history books in the future about the year of the pandemic, the year when America adopted this new age segregation. So I'll read it like if this is a history book right now. Vaccine and mask mandates were federal, state, and local laws that enforced medical segregation in the United States. Most areas in the United States were affected by formal and informal policies of segregation. But 2 states in the South had adopted laws beginning in the late year 2021, Florida and Texas, that variously banned discrimination in public accommodations. Laws were enacted in 2020 and 2021 by Democrat-dominated state legislators to disenfranchise and remove political and economic gains of those who support bodily autonomy and medical choice. In practice, vaccine mandates created medical segregations in all public facilities in the United States, beginning in the year 2020. Medical choice segregation was extended to public facilities and transportation. Access to facilities by the unvaccinated was consistently limited. Sometimes there were no facilities for the unvaccinated at all. As a body of law, vaccine mandates institutionalized economic, educational, and social disadvantages for many Americans and soldiers living in the United States. Vaccine mandates and state constitutional provisions created the segregation of public schools, public places, and public transportation based on philosophical and religious medical choices. President Joe Biden initiated the segregation of federal workplaces in the year 2021, and the CDC by an American with anonymous. And here today I spoke it boldly and loudly, strong and courageously, because I too am an American. So I'll speak out of that person. And I want to say thank you to the town for letting everyone see how the funds of the American Rescue Plan is going to be used. It was actually going to be one of my points today as well, but I'll just say thanks, because I was very curious about, you know, why we're doing things and you know, just the reason behind it. So thank you for that. And I just want to say, as I'm wrapping it up, you know, it's a shame that some people in power are actually profiting, receiving the benefit that is literally on the back of a discriminatory process known as a mandate. I think it's unconstitutional and it needs to be stopped with human action. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. And your beautiful baby. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Yeah. Yes, Bob.
Real quick. Again, Bob Hammersley, 358 Hobart Street, Southington. Just to be clear, under Section 674F of Public Act 21-29, you cannot choose to opt out of certain portions that you might like. You can only choose to opt out of the entire requirement. So when I hear someone come up and suggest that the public hearing piece is a good piece, and we should continue to have public hearings on ADUs, well, if you don't opt out, we're not having public hearings on ADUs. It's that simple. So I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on that.
Thank you. Very good. Richard?
Right on. Verse 79, Barbara. Madam Chair, I messed up. I had a little too much caffeine, but I'll try to get through this.
I understand completely.
So, what do I want to talk about? I guess I've been thinking a lot about my family moved here in the late 90s. Right? I was attending one of the poorest school districts in New Britain at the time, right? So my parents wanted to bring me and my brother here for a better life. My dad worked he worked very hard to do that for us, right? I agree with some of the things that people said, right? This is a town built on blue collar workers, right? Hardworking people. I totally agree with that. I guess I just worry that we don't necessarily meet the needs of all of these working parents all the time. I don't have any specifics on that, but I'm sorry, I want to backtrack actually, because I do want to think about one of the biggest differences in moving to Southington after New Britain was, all of the nature that we have here, right? We are in a valley, right? I forgot what the original settlers called it. Forgot to look it up on Google, I'm sorry. But, I do like to go hiking. I do like to go on the mountaintops. And I like to think that we all see the same thing. I don't know how often any of you hike up there, but either there or Castle Craig. I like to think that we all see the same thing, but I do wonder sometimes, because a lot of concerns are the overdevelopment of Southington, right? Especially with the AUDs. But I'm 30, almost very close to 32. And in my, that's young compared to, others here. I get that. But, the change that I've seen in Southington has been very fast for me as well. So I know it's complicated, but we need to be a more welcoming community. We need to think more about parents who are working all the time. I know a lot of you are business owners, as I found out at the the candidate forum that we had, right? I just worry that maybe we are forgetting the needs of a lot of those workers, because I just want to read this from Aristotle. I'm rambling and I'm probably running out of time, but the man who is isolated, who is unable to share in the benefits of political association, has no need to share because he is already self-sufficient, is no part of the city, and must therefore be either a beast or a god. Now, I know we don't have any gods walking among us in Southington, right? So I think it's very easy for children of workers in Southington to become isolated if we don't invest in them enough to give them things to do when their parents are not there. I know we have a lot of youth services in terms of sports, the YMCA, Camp Sloper, all of that. I went to those things when I was a kid and I enjoyed them, but I think it's New Milford. They have a youth center there where bands play. They have pool tables. Just like a safe place where kids can go and socialize, maybe talk about a bad day they had, in the comfort of, an empathetic, understanding adult. Before I forget, so that's my last point on that. I know I'm rambling, but maybe everyone's given up on the Quinnipiac River, but I see that, as an opportunity to work with some of our neighbors, like New Britain, where it starts, right, down through Plainville, us, Cheshire, Meriden, so on. Maybe I'm being way too idealistic with that, but I'm sure Southington has a lot of fishers, right? Me and my father used to do that a lot. I'm sure it's dreaming too big, but I know I'm not going to win as a writing candidate, but that would be, something I would seriously consider, right? I'm no limnologist, but we could talk to one and work. We have so much wealth in this town. We should share it try to make our neighbors better communities, better communities as well. That would help decrease the crime rates that we see here too, if we worked closer with some of our, more urban neighbors that don't have the same opportunities that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Hearing none, I'm going to close public communication. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's move right into old business. Old business, action on Planning and Zoning Commission opt out of the accessory dwelling unit provision.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion if that's okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
There's a lot of, I had the opportunity to attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting as well, which was really good and insightful. There was a lot of good dialogue. The question that I had when Commissioner Volpe was up, and maybe it's more just for the town attorney, on the Public Act, we heard from the chairman of the town council that, this opt out versus leave it and opt in, it's not partial, right? When I heard the Commissioner Volpe come here and say there were certain things that were good and there's certain things that there weren't, but she still voted no to opt out. Is there an opportunity to take pieces of this and opt out of pieces, or is this a whole Public Act that we opt out of or stay in?
No, I believe you have to take it as a whole. I don't believe that there is options to pick and choose.
So, Madam Chair, given that, I'd like to make a motion to on item A to approve the opt out of the accessory dwelling unit ADU requirements as outlined in Public Act 21.29, following up on the planning and zoning vote to do the same.
Madam Chair.
I'd like to cite some reasons, if that's okay, Madam Chair. Would you like me to do that now?
And then
What's your
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that we have it in your motion that this is pursuant to Section 6F of the Public Act 21-29. I think we have to be specific about that because there are two
And
different
I'll amend
distinct
my
ones.
motion. I'll amend my motion to include the town attorney's recommendation.
excellent.
And with that, Madam
And
Chair.
Paul, you can go ahead and go on with your motion.
Yeah, upon reading, I did have a chance last week to read the entire legislation, sit through the planning and zoning. So my motion, the reasons for the motion are numerous. And I would agree that, there are some things to look at for the future. So these are the reasons why I'm making the motion to opt out. Number one, the town of Southington has the ability to update our regulations, our zoning regulations, to look at bits and pieces of these on their own, as Mr. Anderson had mentioned, at any time. So we don't need the Public Act to mandate this. We can do that at any time. Number two, the significant increase in density potential could be immense with an increase in population where it's not planned and create a significant strain on services. Number three, Madam Chair, no opportunity for planning and zoning oversight, which dovetails into option four. Comment number 4 is that it really removes the public opportunity for a public hearing when these things do come before planning and zoning today. This would be an as of right and remove the public hearing opportunity. So, erring on the side of hearing, like we heard today in public communications, is always good. This would remove that ability for these type of applications. Number 5, the ADU is supposedly to promote affordable housing, and some argue that it could. However, it doesn't give, the state also mandates that towns and municipalities must meet a minimum threshold of affordable housing. And this would not allow us to count that towards the affordable housing units in Southington. Commissioner Volpe did mention historical preservation, and so did the chairman. So I think that this does have the potential to negatively impact historical preservation in town in certain situations. And then finally, I do believe it is, again, the Democratic legislature at the state level. The overreach into the municipalities is significant. It's a one-size-fits-all. I think that our Planning and Zoning Commission does a great job of looking out for our community, which it was designed to do according to state laws. And I think that this one-size-fits-all proposal in Public Act 2129 will potentially hurt the orderly development of the town and the character of the town. And that's the extent of the motion, Madam Chair.
I'll
Have
second.
this motion, and who seconded?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Mike Del Santo did. Thank you. Open it up for discussion. Yeah, Chris?
Typically, when we have a matter like this, we take some time, we hear a presentation, we take some time to digest it. There's a lot of information here tonight. I especially being so early in the process, I do think it makes a little bit more sense to hold off on this, get a little bit more information, maybe hear from someone at the state to understand their logic and reasoning rather than just make assumptions. So with that, I'll make a motion to table this for action tonight.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do I have a second for the is there a second for the motion to table?
We need a, I
Yeah.
think we need a second.
Yeah.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, now has a table. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on the table motion, please?
And who is the second? I'm sorry.
Val.
Thank you. Morelli,
No.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Pulis,
Yes to table.
Chaplinsky,
No to table.
Del Santo,
No.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
No
Dietzick,
to table.
Lombardi,
No.
Triano.
No to table. So we're going to go forward with the motion as presented by Mr. Chaplinsky. And
For discussion. Are we still in?
we're still in discussion, yep. So we'll go back to the discussion. Anyone else wish to add something? Michael, go ahead.
While I understood everyone that came up tonight speaking in favor and or against, having served 18 years on planning and zoning, I sat here in this room and at the town hall many late nights, dreading it, knowing, oh my God, tonight there's a public hearing. We're going to be there till midnight. Okay. I didn't always love it, but I appreciated every single person that came to those meetings and spoke out for or against what was happening with their neighbor. Okay. This takes that away. And I think it's brutal. I think it's a slap in the face to every resident of this town that these things could happen by right. And if someone wants to do something on your neighbor's property, they can just come in and apply it and make it so. So I am not in favor of this. I am in favor of the opt-out. I don't need someone from the state to come down and tell us what we're doing wrong. We're doing a pretty good job here. I think our Planning and Zoning Commission is second to none. They do a great job, and especially Mr. Hammersley. I don't always agree with everything he does and says by allowing the public to come up for every single meeting, whether it's a public hearing or not, but that's on him. That's his board. Okay, and he stays until midnight, and he makes sure that every resident has their say. And that's a democratic process, and that has to continue. So I'll be voting in favor of the opt-out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so
Madam
much.
Chair, just one quick comment, just an
Yes,
observation I have in this legislation. So my recollection is this was a party line vote in Hartford. So I don't see what's the point of having someone come from Hartford. We know how it is. If they're a D, they're going to vote this way. If they're an R, they're going to vote this way. And then they bring it to us. So here's the attitude Hartford has. They're smart. They know how to govern. We don't. A 6-3 majority to opt out, that basically slants this. It's a thumb on the scale of this not opting out. Again, it's just we have commissioners who get elected. They knock doors. They have an election this year, and they're basically taking their opinion from all of that, and they're just throwing it out. This is a step towards regionalization. It's part of a larger plan. And this is just, I'm insulted as a local policymaker that they bring this to us. It just jumps off the paper to me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Morelli?
Yes, Madam Chair, as a 6-year veteran of the Planning and Zoning Department, Planning and Zoning Board, I can tell you that there's a mechanism in place to look at these things on a regular basis, part of the POCD. I agree that Mrs. DiPaolo or Mr. DiPaolo who left, that we have plenty of affordable housing in town. And I also agree with Mr. Anderson and Commissioner Volpe that there are some good things that could come from that. And again, I kind of feel like the one-size-fits-all demands from the state are unwarranted here. And so I will also be voting to opt in to voting to opt out of it. Sorry.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I think at the Planning and Zoning Commission, they did talk about looking at some of the salient points that may be beneficial and, working on them individually through the normal process of planning and zoning regulation revisions. So I look forward to that in the future as well.
Very good. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on this matter?
Madam Chair, so I guess that's the, so that's the concern, not the concern for me. I just want to make it clear that I agree. I mean, I think public input is extremely important. There's many of you on this council that have planning and zoning experience. So that's great. I spent the weekend, trying to grasp a lot of this and really look at it and try to understand it. So that's the only reason that I'm asking, do we need to push this so quickly? And why not look at some of it? If we have to, so what does that process look like if we can look at some pieces of it? Like, where does that go? Where does that happen?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We constantly are looking at our regulations.
But who?
Planning and Zoning Commission.
Planning and zoning.
Okay.
Planning and Zoning Commission. We have a regulation review board. Paul and I started it back in maybe 2009 or 2010, and it's a constant. They meet monthly and they get together and they find out what regulations in town are too restrictive, not restrictive enough. What can we do to make changes? Let us take care of us. Okay. I have a hard time where the state of Connecticut, at this point is failing the residents of its state, is going to come in and make a blanket statement that this is the way it's going to be unless you opt out of it. So,
right. And Mike, I'm trying not to get into that piece of it. I'm trying to remove the politics from it and, don't talk about the...
Understood.
It's okay. I'm really trying to look at it from the perspective of, like we all just received that Open Communities Alliance report, right?
Yes. From Desegregate Connecticut, right? Is that
No,
one?
they're
Oh.
the separate organization, the big report that we received. Chair Hammersley, you received that too as well, right? The open, you read it. Okay, so, right, so that report is very substantial and very in-depth for Southington. So that's where I kind of see the future of what we can be looking at. So that's my question. Like, are we moving on this too quickly, or do we opt out of this and then do we move forward with providing that report to the consultant that is doing our affordable housing plan? And then how do we as town council members stay on top of that? I understand that planning and zoning has a way that they're staying on top of legislation.
There's a mechanism.
Mechanism. So how do we stay on top of that?
I would just say, I think, Val, if there's a concern that we have that's addressed in this act that we would like to explore, we would just make a proposal to the planning and zoning to look at it and to perhaps explore it a little bit more. But it would be under the direction of our planning and zoning rather than any state legislation, and where we have more control over it. And I think that's wonderful, by the way, because with all of us, we see things differently, and sometimes we have blinders on, or we don't see correctly, or whatever. So as we look at things that come across our desk, I think it's that if we're conscientious enough, we need to look at all of that and see, is there something that we can do to implement something within our structure?
Well, that's I guess that's a question too. Is that report that we received, will that be provided to the consultant?
Go ahead. I know
Madam
Chris
Chair.
Poulos also had his hand up.
Well,
Did
can I
you-
get an
yeah.
answer to that? Do we have an answer for that?
Well, that would go through Bob.
I'm sure.
To the affordable housing plan consultant, that would go.
Well, that's up to Bob. If the commission wants to refer it, that would be fine.
Okay.
But he doesn't have to answer right now. I think they'll talk about it probably, right? And so we can't dictate. We have enough dictating over here, Bob. But we would, I know Val feels that it should. But so you think about it, you talk it over with your team. Okay. Chris, did you want to speak?
I'm all set. Thank you.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Madam Chair, just one more quick thing.
Yes.
About someone brought up the plan of conservation and development. Whoever gets elected to the Planning and Zoning Commission in 7 days is going to be serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission during the next plan of conservation and development. I believe it's up into 2026.
Beginning of
10 years already?
It has. Time flies.
All right.
Waits for no
Was on that
man.
board longer than I thought.
So they're, in the next couple of years, they're going to create a subcommittee to start looking at the plan of conservation development. And I imagine this is going to be a hot topic or hot button issue that is going to be included and involved in the plan of conservation development. That's the best document that we have that tells us what's best for the town going forward.
As Bob actually said, the closer to the people, the more effective the government. So,
democracy.
Well, there were not only was the plan developed, but there were stakeholders that were assigned, of course, various components of that plan. So there is somebody, probably two people on the planning and zoning that are assigned to this specific topic.
Right.
So again, if you wanted
Very
to bring
good.
it up, you could go to a meeting and mention your concerns, and I'm sure that those people would take that up.
Right.
All right, we have a-
I hate to bring in the ugly, and Val mentioned it, and I'm trying to abstain as much as I can about the politics of it. But all due respect, the state of Connecticut should come down to Southington and learn how it's done. We'll show them how it's done. That's my take.
okay. All right. We have a dangling motion right now. So with everyone's okay, we're going to ask the town clerk to call the roll, please. So
Morelli?
I just want to be very clear. So if we vote yes, it is to opt out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
A vote yes means to opt out. Okay, very good. Let's go.
Morelli?
Yes to opt out.
Palmieri?
I do feel it would be more responsible to get a little bit more information, but I will vote yes.
Poulos?
Yeah, I think this board would have benefited from a little extra time to metabolize all the information that we got, but the public comment was compelling. So I'm going to vote yes to opt out.
Chaplinsky?
Yes to opt out.
Del Santo?
Yes to opt out.
DiPaolo?
Yes.
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Motion passes. Item B, Paul, did you
Madam
want to
Chair,
do
yep,
that?
I'd like to
Okay.
make a motion there as well. This is a motion to opt out of the parking limitations as outlined in Public Act 2129, which was also voted to opt out by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if you don't mind, Jeremy, giving me the
Sure. It's pursuant to Section 5 of the Public Act 21-29. You're voting to opt out of the parking limitations for dwelling units.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, the reasons for opting out, similar to the previous one, oversight, no appropriate oversight and public comments, state overreach, one size fits all, and the potential to create strain on services and hurt the development and character of the town.
Okay, very good. And do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Del Santo. All right, there is a motion and a second. There is open communication. Is there anything anyone wishes to comment on?
Same comments.
Hearing no comments, let's move the motion. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Poulos?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes to opt out.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes.
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Item C, action on request of Southington Chamber of Commerce. Go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, I would like to make two motions for this specific action. My first motion would be to waive the provisions of Section 59-1 through 59-6 on the Southington Code of Ordinances, which is in agreement with provision 59-7
It's okay.
as outlined by the town attorney.
Okay, so your motion, say it again, Tom. I'm
Okay,
so
I'll
sorry.
say it again, and after my motion, I'll explain the motion. Okay. I make the motion to waive the provisions of Section 59-1 through 59-6 of the Town Code of Ordinances, which is in agreement with Section 59-7, which is the waiver of Sections 1 through 6. That the provisions were outlined by the town attorney, which was 2/3 vote. The committee set up the naming suggestions, the 5-year term, and 3 name suggestion.
I'll second that motion.
Is that you, Chris?
We'll have a diagram.
Chris seconded it.
Chris was trying to second it while
While he was talking about it. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's call the roll. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep you working, Madam Clerk.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Pulis,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes, thank you, everyone. The second motion.
Second motion, Madam Chair, I would make a motion that the municipal parking lot on Main Street be named the Matt Florian Municipal Parking Lot, and the access entrance from Center Street, currently Center Place, be named Matt Florian's Way.
Second.
And I have a second for Chris. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I just want clarification. Can we confirm if it's currently Center Place? I think Center Place is across the street.
Center Court.
Center Court is the proper.
So the amended, it's
I'll
Center Court.
I'll amend my motion to include Center Court.
Thank you.
I'll
And
amend
Chris,
my second.
thank you, Chris. Very good. Any discussion on this? Go ahead, Paul.
Just, Madam Chair, it's an honor to have the opportunity to vote on this. The Florian name, and Matt Florian in particular, has had such a profound impact in our community for so many years, and they continue to have a profound impact. So I'll be supporting the vote, and I'm looking forward to the future where we have some beautiful signage there as well.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Val. Val's
Al, I'm so
Thanks,
sorry.
Mike.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So yeah, I just, I've known the family. I've known Matt for a long time, and I grew up with his wife, Michelle, and her sister, Carolyn. Matt did so much for this town, and he changed the downtown, and he really got it going, and as Mr. Riccio was talking about, he was a hard worker, and he knew the value of that. Brought up in a great family, and so I hope this gives some some comfort to Michelle and the kids, and it's
I
a
still see
privilege
that
to.
every once in a while. It happened a couple of days ago. I was driving through the center of town, and from the back, a gentleman just reminded me of Matt so much walking. So, okay. Any other comments?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
go ahead.
just briefly, there
Michael.
are a lot of people that have an amazing allegiance to the town of Southington, and I say that often because I think I'm one of them. I love the town of Southington, and people like Matt Florian loved this town and cared nothing more than to see a beautiful sidewalk or a beautiful building, and he really put his finger on some amazing things in town. And so this is just such a wonderful trip, and as well as Paul said, I'm just so proud to vote for this tonight. And also Val nailed it. If it can bring his family some comfort, then I'm okay with that. I'm happy for the family.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I want to add to what these people had just said, and that is that I think this is very appropriate. We did get some comment that they thought it was inappropriate to do that so soon, and I just think that when you look at the time that you spend to volunteer for some of these positions and the time that Matt sacrificed to be away from his kids and his wife, his family, and his dedication to our town, I think this is extremely appropriate. And so, again, I'm in favor. Thank you.
Very good. I think we're done with
Madam
comments.
Chair, can I just, I know this is kind of personal, but, so after my father passed away, this council, you dedicated that pool at Memorial Park. You waived, obviously, the requirements. So, I know what it feels like. I know as being part of a family that you lose someone tragically. So, thanks, Jim. It's important to do.
I think of your dad all the time sitting in this chair. I served with him many times. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's call the roll, shall we? Thank you.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Pulis,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Absolutely.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes, that was a wonderful thing we just did. Item D on the report of the Board of Finance.
So moved,
I'll
Madam
make a
Chair.
motion. I'll make a
Mike, you
motion.
go.
And
Well, we're
Sal, you
fighting
wanna
tonight. We're
second
going
it?
at it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any abstentions? Okay, very good. It passes unanimously. Action on the American Rescue Plan funds.
Madam Chair, if I could have two votes for this, the first vote would be for everything except for the pool, so that all of you can vote on it, and then I'll separate the pool.
Okay, so the first motion is for everything except the pool.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adopt the rescue plan as presented to us this evening, with the exception of the pool.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It passes. And now we're going to do the pool.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to go forward with the pool plan as described in this evening's presentation.
Correct.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
And is there any discussion?
I'm just going to abstain from voting on this because I work seasonally for the Recreation Department.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to also reiterate what I said at the beginning of the meeting. And a thank you to town staff, the town manager, and the Department of the town engineer, Annette Turnquest, and all others who are involved in the Board of Finance and the
Finance Director. and Board of
Amelia.
Finance,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This is just, I know it sounds a little bit corny, but this is a great document, and this shows that the leadership of Southington understands the needs of the taxpayers and is responsibly spending these funds that are coming in from the federal government. So thank you again.
Very good. Hearing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
And I'm going to abstain.
And you're abstaining. Thank you, Chris. Therefore, it passes 8 to 1 abstention. Action on the West Street Pump Station bid.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the West Queen Street pump station bid to Kovacs Construction in the total amount, including contingency of $980,000.
Second. Sorry.
Okay, Jim seconded it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none, all that passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Action on the snow plowing and snow removal of town streets and parking lot bid.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And I hear a second from Chris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passed unanimously. Action on the town hall boiler replacement.
Nope,
bid.
skip
Oh,
it,
I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair.
Action on the snow removal of school access walks bid.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair, for approval.
Second.
And we have a second from Chris. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Action on the town hall boiler replacement bid.
I'll make
Madam-
a.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to award the bid to Save More Cooling and Heating, right from Southington for $61,400.
And I'll second that.
And Jim is seconding it.
Actually, hold on, Madam Chair. I thought it was 67. I may have that wrong. Hold on. Yeah, which includes the contingency, $67,540.
Okay, I'll modify that motion.
Very good, and you
Second.
second, your modification is also for the second. All those in favor, is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes unanimously. You can be warm next year, Mark.
For this year.
Hopefully this year. Action on the dispatcher's contract. This is
Madam
a great
Chair,
thing.
I'll make that
Thank
motion
you,
if you'd
Val.
like
Second, Madam Chair.
to
Seconded
approve
by
the contract.
Paul. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? This passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations to a great contract for all concerned. Item K, action on the wastewater treatment plant closure recommendation.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve $7,500 to evaluate the closure requirements for the abandoned wastewater treatment plant located at 1160 South Main Street.
Thank you,
Second,
Bill.
Madam
And
Chair.
who's that? Who has the second?
Jim.
Morelli. Okay, very good. Is there any discussion on it? Hearing none, we'll move the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, Thank you very much. It passes unanimously. Action on electrical drops for the trail.
Madam
Paul.
Chair, this was
Oh,
this
go
was
ahead.
discussed at the last meeting. The money has been already submitted to the town, and rumor has it that Mrs. Maselli is got someone to volunteer for the trenching also. So, so we're asking for permission to work on the trail. We have not received. I'm looking at a net. We have not received approval from the state yet on that. So we're gonna go ahead.
I better return my shovel. It's gonna dig.
Now, I've been in contact with the DEP who has jurisdiction over it. They're not foreseeing any issues, but they're checking on what exactly the mechanism is to approve it. So I'll touch base with them again after this meeting, after you take a vote, but I don't anticipate it being an issue.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 12.5, which
Yeah.
is going to be offset by a grant that we received, some funds, right?
We already have the fund.
We got the funds, so I'll make a motion to do that, Madam Chair, with the stipulation that staff still has to work out the details of the how and when with the state.
Second.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any further discussion on this?
Just one comment.
Yes,
I just
please, Chris.
can't underestimate Dawn Maselli for her efforts to secure funds. I mean, she is like the number one fundraiser in this community.
Right answer the phone when she calls, right, Chris?
Yeah. But seriously, thank you, Dawn Maselli, for bringing in the funds for this project. She had said she was going to try to get funds for it, and she came through. So really want to thank her for that.
She helped us with the rec pool.
Madam Chair, if I can just make one more comment on Chris as well. There is a local company that's also going to be donating for the excavation. So the 12.5 is for the electrical. The excavation is a separate
Mrs.
component.
Maselli's working with that company now.
Okay, so we have the motion, and I forgot, was it you?
Second.
We're all
Seconded, Jim?
Poulos.
Oh, Chris Poulos, I'm sorry, Chris. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I hear none. That passes unanimously. New business?
Oh, Madam Chair, we have another item.
Item M.
The Whitman
Oh,
Road.
item M, I'm so sorry.
Item M.
Go ahead, Michael.
I'll make a
Madam Chair,
motion.
actually, Madam Chair, I'd like to recuse myself from this one, if that's
Oh,
okay.
yes, if you could
Chipper's
go
gone.
away.
And I'll make a motion for the abandonment of Whitman Road.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Very good. The abandonment of Whitman
I would just
Whitman
add,
Road.
that the with the agreement the town attorney drafted with my signature and the president's signature.
I'll add
Good, add that
that
too.
information to the
Is there
motion.
any further discussion? Anybody need clarification on any of that? Hearing none, let's move the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we can move on to new business. Item A, the tax refunds. Val?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the tax refunds that are outlined in our packet.
Second.
There's a lot of them too. All of those who are in agreement signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes unanimously, and that's very good. And now on for the appointments. Item 1 is the seed, one member for the seed committee, and the seed committee needed a business person, and Barbara Coleman, as president of the Chamber of Commerce, would fit in that role perfectly, and I would like a motion to...
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair, for Barbara
Second.
Coleman Heckler to
Oh, we have
place
a
in that
second.
position.
Can I
Yes,
just clarify? Do you
sure.
need to be a resident of Southington to serve? Because our boards and commissions, they're Southington residents.
Yeah, my
Seed
understanding...
is a state board, so the answer would be no. They fit the criteria. You don't have to be. So,
Yeah,
but she's
'cause I
as long
checked
as
that
as long as
too.
she's a business person who has business in the town of Signton under the state seed program.
Okay. Okay.
So, all those in favor of Barbara Coleman taking that position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes. Congratulations, Barbara. The Central Regional Tourism, Dawn had been serving on that, and unfortunately, she was never invited to meetings. There were a lot of things going on, and so I felt it was better if we coordinated this Central Regional Tourism spot under Lou Perillo. And if he needs her to go forward and present something or whatever, there would be a liaison. But I think because of Lou's position, it would flow much better, and hopefully he would become more involved in it. And also Dawn can certainly help Lou as much as he needs. So I'm going to coordinate that locally with Lou's position. So I am not going to put a name on that other than to incorporate it under the Economic Development Commission. All right. Item 3, Housing Authority.
Madam Chair, I've been given the name of Mike Early of Winding Ridge and here in Southington. I hereby appoint him to a 5-year term expiring October 2026.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Board, we need 2 members.
Madam Chair, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion for the first member. I would like to put forth the name of Michael DeFeo for the Parks and Rec Board.
Second.
Okay, it's really a reappointment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have
Madam
one more
Chair,
opening.
I'd like to make a motion to also reappoint Mr. Michael Basulo to the Parks and Recreation Board as well.
Second that as well.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is with mixed emotions that we close down this session. I would just like to thank every single one. You know, we all represent the people, and this council has worked extremely hard, both sides. And sometimes emotions fly a little bit, and sometimes we disagree. But I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, effort, your time and treasure and talent, not treasure, but talent. And Chris, once again, we thank you for your time and your dedication to the community. I'm sure we'll be seeing you in a multiple of places.
I'll be around. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Having said that, all those in favor?
Aye.
I do too.